If you love richly imagined fantasy worlds rooted in myth and legend, or if you enjoy stories that balance epic stakes with intimate character moments, or if you want a sequel that deepens its world, heightens its tension, and raises the emotional cost for its heroes, if so, then today's book just might be for you. Today, I'll be reviewing The Wandering Fire by Guy Gavriel Kay. Welcome to Spencer Reads Everything. I'm your host, Spencer Duncan, and on this channel, I read widely across genres from classic literature and epic fantasy to political history, biography, poetry, and anything else that catches my attention. My goal is to bring you thoughtful, long-form reviews so you know exactly what to expect before you pick up a book. Today, I'm reviewing The Wandering Fire by Guy Gavriel Kay, the second book in the Fionavar Tapestry trilogy. It first came to the series because I kept hearing it described as one of the foundational works of modern epic fantasy, and because Kay's reputation for lyrical writing and mythic storytelling has only grown over the years. After finishing the first book, The Summer Tree, which I of course have done a review on, if you're interested, please go check that out. I knew I wanted to continue. This sequel promises higher stakes, deeper emotional resonance, and a richer exploration of the tapestry that binds all worlds together. And like all good trilogies, it also is going to be the second act, which means that we're going to have an incredible climax as we lead to the third book. However, before we get into it, let me give you a quick biography of Guy Gavriel Kay. I don't recall if I did one in my first video, but just as a reminder, he is a Canadian novelist, best known for his richly imagined fantasy worlds and his distinctive fusion of history, mythology, and lyrical storytelling. Born in 1954 in Winnipeg, Kay studied philosophy and law before turning to writing, but his career as a novelist began under unusual and remarkable circumstances. In the 1970s, Kay worked with Christopher Tolkien to help edit and prepare the Silmarillion for publication, an experience that left a clear imprint on his sense of mythic narrative and ideas of world design. Kay's own novels, however, quickly developed a voice, a structure, an emotional core that were entirely his own. His early work, including, of course, the one that we're covering now, the Fionavar Tapestry trilogy, follows the conventions of portal fantasy, but even these books display his signature strengths of elegant prose, sweeping themes, and a willingness to engage with sorrow, sacrifice, and the lasting cost of heroic action. As his career continued, Kay became known for his historical fantasy novels set in worlds closely inspired by real places and periods, from medieval Spain and Italy to the Tang Dynasty in China. These books helped establish him as one of the most respected fantasy writers of the last 50 years. Across his body of work, Kay blends epic scale with intimate human stories, crafting worlds that both feel mythic and deeply personal. His writing is celebrated for its emotional clarity, its attention to character, and its ability to reflect on the nature of history, memory, and legend. The Fionavar Tapestry remains one of his foundational achievements, a testament to his ability to draw from the great mythic traditions while creating something distinctly his own. Before I go on, I must, of course, have a spoiler warning. The Wandering Fire is the second book in the Fionavar Tapestry, and in order to give a meaningful summary of this volume, I will have to talk about major plot points from both this book and the first one, The Summer Tree. If you have not read these series yet and you want to go in blind, this is the place to pause the video, read the book, and then come back. If you're still here, then let's continue into the world of Fionavar. Let's talk, of course, about the main characters. This is a really important part about understanding these, and then I also am going to give you a very quick summary of the first book before I give you details of the second book. So there's a lot to cover. So let's first take a look at our main characters as we are digging into the tapestry of the first of all worlds. You have, as you may recall, from this world in which we live, your 5 main characters that are taken to Fionavar, and they are going to be the main ones that we follow, of course, with a few other individuals from Fionavar, and I'll name those as we go along. First, you have Jennifer Lowell. Jennifer undergoes one of the most profound transformations in the trilogy. After the trauma she experienced in the Summer Tree, she emerges in this book with a new identity shaped by myth and fate. Her strength, resilience, and evolving sense of destiny make her one of the emotional anchors of the story. Then you have Kimberly Ford. Kim's role as the Shear of Brennan continues to expand. She becomes increasingly attuned to the working of fate and the cosmic forces driving the war against Rakoth Malgrim. Her visions and her connection to the deeper magic Fionavar make her essential to the unfolding conflict. Then you have Dave Martignuc. Dave's journey continues to take him deeper into the world of Dare. His sense of loyalty, justice, and belonging grows stronger as he embraces a new identity shaped by honor and responsibility. Dave's storyline is one of the most grounded and emotionally compelling in the trilogy. Then you have Kevin Lane. Kevin, who often masked his insecurities with charm and humor in the first book, faces one of the most significant and heartbreaking arcs in this volume. His developing sense of purpose and the weight of sacrifice he is asked to bear give The Wandering Fire some of its most powerful moments. You have, of course, Paul Schaefer. Paul continues to live with the consequences of his self-offering on the summer tree, which is how the first book ended. His grief, discipline, and deepening connection to Fionavar's spiritual forces position him as a figure caught between the mortal and the divine. His story in this book explores the meaning of duty and the limits of human endurance. Then, as I said, there are a few figures from Fionavar, so these are not people from our modern contemporary world. You have Lauren Silvercloak and Matt Soren. They are the mage and the dwarf king, and they remain guiding forces for the group, each carrying burdens from their past while providing counsel and stability as the stakes rise. You have Dave's Dalray companions. You have Tabor, Levin, and others that continue to expand Dave's world, bringing some pride, but some courage, and the fierce independence of the Pains into the central struggle. You have the big baddie, the bad guy. You have Arakoth Malgrim. He is the imprisoned, godlike antagonist, and he remains a looming presence. His influence spreads, and the threat he poses becomes far more immediate and destructive. And then, in this book, you have the addition of Arthur, Guinevere, Lancelot, names that I'm confident sound familiar because they are, of course, the mythic echoes that are introduced in the first book, and they are deepened significantly here. The author's handling of the Arthurian thread becomes one of the trilogy's emotional pillars, intertwining destiny and tragedy with the larger tapestry of Fionavar. Now, let's take a quick summary. It's very quick. I don't have time to go over everything in the first book. I just wanted to give us a jumping off point before we head into the details of the second book. So here's your quick summary of the first book. In the first book in the Fionavar Tapestry, The Summer Tree, which is our sweeping portal fantasy trilogy, in which 5 students from our world are invited to Fionavar, the first of all worlds, by the mage Soren Silvercloak. What begins as a ceremonial visit quickly becomes something much larger. The 5 discover that Fionavar is the archetypal world from which all others take their shape, and its coming danger ripples across every reality. In the first book, The Summer Tree, each of the 5 is drawn into Fionavar's ancient myths and unfolding conflicts. Paul's self-sacrifice on the Summer Tree, Kim's calling as the seer, Dave's bond with the Dalray, Jennifer's abduction and transformation, and Kevin's dawning sense of purpose all set the stage for the larger struggle. By the end of the first volume, Arakoth Malgrim's shadow is rising, and the 5 find that they have become essential threads in the tapestry itself. With that, let's dig into the second book in the trilogy, The Wandering Fire. 6 months have passed since the end of the Summer Tree. Kim is waiting for the dream that will reveal how to call the warrior to aid the forces of light against Malgrim. Jennifer, now pregnant with Arakoth Malgrim's child, has made the determined decision to carry the baby. Knowing that Malgrim wanted her dead, she resolves not only to survive, but to bring the child into the world, believing this act will both defy and confound him. While still in our world, Jennifer and Paul are attacked by Gallidan. Paul draws on the volatile power of Mornir that has been inside him since his nights on the Summer Tree, and he manages to bring both of them back to Fionavar. They arrive safely, but the crossing triggers Jennifer's labor. She names her son Darian and entrusts him to Vey and Shahar, Finn's parents. Jael then sends Paul and Jennifer back home. I know I said a lot of names. Hopefully you followed most of that for the most part. At least remember the main names. When spring comes, Kim and the others travel to Stonehenge. A dream has shown Kim that she must summon Uther Pendragon to learn where Arthur lies buried. She succeeds, and Uther gives her the name that will call Arthur back. Using the Belrath, Kim sends the others to Fionavar and sends herself to Glastonbury Tor, where she summons Arthur with the name Childslayer, a title he must answer to because of the May babies he once ordered killed to stop Mordred's rise. Kim and Arthur soon reunite with the others in Fionavar, which is now trapped in an unnaturally long winter. When Jennifer meets Arthur, her memories flood back, and she recalls her life as Guinevere, still unable to confront the trauma of Starkuth. I apologize, by the way, for the pronunciations. When you read a book and you're not overly familiar with the legacy from which it is being drawn, I know I'm saying some things incorrectly. But anyways, she is still unable to confront the trauma of Starkuth. She withdraws to the Temple of Dana, grateful at least there is no Lancelot this time, and believing she cannot betray Arthur again. Meanwhile, Darian grows at an accelerated pace like all Andain. So Vey, Shahar, and Finn move with him to Yzane's cottage by the lake. Darian is affectionate and devoted to Finn, but he also hears strange voices in storms and occasionally manifests the dangerous power he inherited from Malgrim, his eyes glowing red when it surfaces. On the plains, the Eltor are stranded in the heavy snow, while Galadan's wolves harry them relentlessly. The Dalray defend the herds, but soon face an army of Ugach mounted on Slaug. Darmud arrives with his men, and Dave and Kevin help turn back the first attack. Ultimately, it is Tabor riding the magical and deadly Imwraith Nymphes who saves them. Ivor fears that his bond with such a supernatural creature might draw his son too far from the mortal world. Kim, Dave, and Levin and a small group travel to the Cave of the Sleepers, where Dave sounds Owen's horn to summon the Wild Hunt. Owen's and 7 shadowy kings awaken, but there are 9 horses. Just as the hunt prepares to ride, Finn appears and takes the final place. This is his longest road, riding forever with the hunt. Most of the company, except Paul, who stays with Darian, then travels to Gwyn Ysrat, sacred territory of the goddess. They arrive on Midsummer's Eve, a night steeped in powerful erotic magic. Kim, Geraint, Jael, and the mages discover that Matron, the renegade first mage of Brennan, is behind the winter, sustaining it from an island that cannot be reached because every port is frozen. During a boar hunt, Kevin is wounded in a way that marks him as belonging to Dana. On Midsummer Eve, Darmurd and Shara finally confess their love. Kevin follows Caval to Dunmara, where he sacrifices himself to the goddess. His death allows Dana to intervene and break the winter that has been choking Fionavar. With winter ended, open war begins. Kim and Brock set out into the mountains but are attacked by brigands. The Dalray face a massive assault from the armies of the Dark, and Dave again summons the White Hunt to save them. The Hunt slaughters the Dark forces, but then turns on the Dalray until Sinwyn intervenes. That night, she takes Dave as her lover. Darian, now rapidly aging into a young man, hears Cernan question why the child was allowed to live. Hurt and feeling abandoned after Finn's departure, Darian decides to seek out his father, Malgrim. Meanwhile, Jennifer confronts her past and reunites with Arthur for a single day filled with joy and the fragile hope that this time might be different, since there is no third, of course referring to Lancelot. Arthur, Lauren, Matt, Paul, and Dermot sailed to Cader Sadat. Jennifer travels with Brindle to Lason's Tower to await their return. At Cader Sadat, the company discovered that Metron has been sustaining the winter by repeatedly draining and resurrecting Svart Alfar using the cauldron of Kathmegol. Lauren destroys the magic and kills Metron, but he draws so much power that Matt dies as a consequence. In the depths of the castle, they find the Chamber of the Dead, where Arthur, bearing the full weight of his repeated cycles of guilt and redemption, awakens Lancelot du Lac. Lancelot uses his healing gift to restore Matt to life, though the act severs the bond between Matt and Lorne, leaving Lorne no longer a mage. As the company prepares to leave, Lancelot hesitates, knowing that his presence will bring new pain to Arthur and Guinevere. But Arthur calls to him with sorrow and affection, saying, "She will be waiting for you." And so Lancelot joins them, the company setting out once more towards what awaits. That, of course, sets us up for the 3rd book in the series, which I will get to. Well, let me, of course, give you my personal reaction to this. I mean, I did really enjoy The Wandering Fire. It carries forward everything I appreciate about the Summer Tree, while deepening the emotional and, of course, the mythic weight of the story. There is a familiar feel to it and the kind of atmosphere that you expect from Portal Fantasy, where ordinary people step into a world shaped by older powers. But this series is notably darker than most of its Portal Fantasy counterparts. The author is not afraid to let grief, trauma, and sacrifice sit at the center of the narrative, and that gives this volume a seriousness that feels earned rather than forced. Of course, one of the most striking elements of the book is the way that it blends mythology. The Arthurian strand becomes far more prominent here, not just as a reference, but as an active part of the story. The arrival of Arthur, Guinevere, and Lancelot shifts the emotional center for the novel. Their presence brings both grandeur and tragedy, and the author uses them to deepen the themes of love, failure, and fate. For some readers, this mixture of mythologies might feel like a lot, but I found it compelling. It adds texture and resonance to the wider tapestry. It does also present the challenge of having to either make up pronunciations for a lot of words that you just don't know how to say, because many of them are being drawn from, I'm assuming, Old English or some kind of old mythology that I just don't have enough familiarity with. But there is no question that this novel is doing a tremendous amount of work. It is a sequel that expands the world, that raises the stakes, it complicates the characters' arcs, and it weaves in new mythic layers. But even with all that narrative ambition, it remains an engaging and readable book. The author's prose carries you forward, and the emotional core of the story gives the complexity of a human anchor. Like the first volume, this one left me eager to see how the trilogy concludes. So, who is this book for? Well, it's for readers who enjoy epic fantasy grounded in myth, emotion, and atmosphere rather than elaborate magic systems or fast-paced action. If you appreciate stories where character development carries as much weight as world building, The Wandering Fire will be deeply satisfying. The author's writing is lyrical and deliberate. The readers who love that immersive poetic style will find much to admire here. It also is for anyone who enjoys portal fantasy that takes itself much more seriously. Don't think Chronicles of Narnia. I don't even know what to think. Think a little more like The Magicians. And while the Fionavar Tapestry shares DNA with other classics of the genre, this volume leans into darker themes and more complex emotional terrain. If you want a fantasy series that balances wonder with genuine sorrow and consequences, this book accomplishes that with care. Readers who are drawn to mythological retellings will find additional appeal. The Arthurian material plays a significant role in this volume, and the author integrates it in a way that feels both surprising and inevitable. If the intersection of legend and fantasy world building intrigues you, this is exactly the kind of book you will enjoy. And finally, if you liked Summer Tree and want a sequel that feels bigger, deeper, and more ambitious, then The Wandering Fire delivers on pretty much every front. Who is this not for? Well, this book is not for readers who prefer straightforward, tightly focused fantasy narratives. The Wandering Fire widens its scope considerably, weaving together multiple myths, character arcs, and histories. If you want a simple plot or a lighter adventure, this volume may feel dense or overly layered. It is also not for readers who are hesitant about darker themes. While The Summer Tree already introduced sorrow and sacrifice, this book amplifies those elements. There are moments of real emotional heaviness, and several characters' arcs explore trauma, grief, or moral ambiguity. Readers looking for a more traditional high fantasy tone may find it heavier than expected. Those who dislike mythological blending may struggle as well. The Arthurian material becomes a major part of the story, and the author treats these figures with the same seriousness as his original characters. If you prefer fantasy that keeps its mythology separate or avoids borrowing directly from established legends, this aspect of the book may not appeal to you either. Finally, The Wandering Fire may not work for readers who want clear-cut world-building rules of a magic system that operates with strict boundaries. The author's approach is more poetic than mechanical, more thematic than technical, and readers who prefer a more rigid framework may find themselves outside the target audience. The Wandering Fire is a strong and compelling second volume in the Fionavar Tapestry, one that deepens the emotional, mythological, and narrative threads set in motion by the Summer Tree. Guy Gavriel Kay expands the world in ways that feel organic and meaningful, weaving together darkness, beauty, and tragedy with remarkable confidence. This book carries the weight of myth while still delivering intimate character moments, and it sets up the final volume with real narrative momentum. I found it an engaging and satisfying read. It has a familiar portal fantasy feel, yet it is much darker, and the blending of mythologies becomes central to its identity, especially, of course, with the arrival of Arthur, Guinevere, and Lancelot. The author asks the reader to juggle multiple emotional and thematic layers, but he rewards that attention with moments of real power and resonance. If the first book drew me into Fionavar, this one made me care more deeply about the tapestry itself. Of course, I'd like to know what your thoughts on this book are, or on anything else by Guy Gavriel Kay. Please let me know what you're thinking in the comments. And while you're here, please check out more of my videos. I have a wide variety of videos, whether you enjoy legendary fantasy, literary fiction, or nonfiction history. Please find something that interests you, watch it, let me know what you're thinking. And if you're enjoying this video or any of my videos, please share them. The more people who know about my channel, the more videos I can make. And don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and until next time, keep those pages turning.